Hey there, happy, what is it? Thursday. Happy Thursday, everyone. Thanks for joining me here tonight for a craft night with friends. We are continuing on the Granny Square Quilt. I am putting on the binding a hair early just because then I can feel like it's a little bit more finished. So we're gonna work on that tonight. We have a little bit more to sew on, and then we are gonna join the two ends and then do a little bit more quilting. So thanks again for joining me. My name's Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for beginners. And I am here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time that we can relax and craft together here. So again, Granny Square Quilt. It is turning out so freaking adorable. I think this binding is gonna look so good. And we did a little bit of a kind of mixed binding. So like here it goes, it turns into the light blue dot, and we have a couple other changes in it. Soon we'll be switching over to some white binding. We have one more side to sew, and actually not even the whole side, and then we will be joining the two ends from the quilt tonight, which is it's kind of magic. I always have to wrap my head around it every single time we do it, and you know, how often are you finishing quilts? So it's been a while since I've done it as well, but it is magic when I do it right. So all right, let's get going. Okay, so here again, we left off. I am on the corner, and I just have to do this one other side here. I'm going to stop. Actually, maybe I'll throw a clip there. I want to stop with enough, like at least kind of like a foot, 10 inches to a foot of unfinished binding here. So I'm going to just estimate. Let's just go like right here, and that's where I'm going to stop. I do like some slack there at the end when I'm trying to work with the binding strip, so I think that seems like a decent distance. So all right, so I just put a clip here as a reminder of like, hey, stop, and then we'll do that. All right, so here we are. I'm just approaching the corner here. I'm gonna grab my glove. Oh, that's the wrong glove. Here we go. Oh, Gretchen says she has a tool for joining the binding. Oh, that's interesting. I'd be curious about that. There are so many ways to kind of join a binding. This is my favorite way. I think mostly because it does feel a little bit like magic. And that's always fun. All right, so I'm going to, within like a 1/4 inch of before I reach the side, I'm stopping at a 1/4 inch. About right there, I would say. And I'm going to do that way where I veer off let me just get this on the floor here again. All my excess binding. I'm going to go where I veer off at a diagonal towards the corner here versus taking this completely off like cutting my threads and taking this completely off the machine. Although I am in some sense, but just without cutting the threads. So all right, I'm gonna rotate now as if I'm starting the next row. So now the binding that I just did will be on the top here. So I'm gonna take the binding that will be going down like this. First, I'm going to fold it straight up. Ooh, I went a little over the 1/4 inch. Ooh, we're fine though still. So straight up. So you should have a 45-degree angle here, and then straight down, folding it right at the top edge there. So I got like this little origami piece going, and that's where I want to be. So now I'm going to get it. I got to get my needle up, and I'm going to. There we go. I'm going to go right a 1/4 inch from both edges. So a 1/4 inch from the top and a 1/4 inch from the side. Think about right there, looks good. I'm gonna do my little back tacking. All right, and by doing this, we should be able to get a nice mitered corner on our binding once we flip the binding around and sew onto the back there. So all right, that is our last corner here. Let's adjust the quilt a little bit. I'm going to get my sewing glove. Oh, again, that's the wrong one. Where'd it go? Get my glove back on and sew the rest of this. There it went. The floor ate it. There we go. Let's get the left-hand one. Oh, Pamela says I have the same binding tool. Love it. Jenny Down has a video tutorial. Huh. All right, I'm going to Google that when we're done here. I still like the way we're going to do it. It is a little magical. All right, now we're switching to some white binding here. I think this might be our first bit of white. All right, I need to shift all this a little bit again. Get straight on. So if you're just coming in on us working on this quilt this week, I did cheat a little bit. We are not done quilting this. You know, you might think, oh yeah, you're almost done. You were working on the binding. Because typically you would put the binding on when you're completely done and you're finishing up. I didn't do that. All I did was quilt down a few rows in the ditch here of the border. So we just sewed there and sewed there all the way around the quilt, and then I've trimmed the quilt and just trimmed the excess off, and I'm putting the binding on now. We have done no other quilting other than this border here. So let me know if that's giving anyone a heart attack. I know it's not the typical way of doing it, but man, I just really wanted to get this binding on, and we pinned all this down, so I don't think it was going to shift much on me. And now when I store this, because you know it'll be another month till we work on it again, but I won't have any extra pieces. I'll just have the quilt at this point with all its pieces, except for maybe, you know, like a final label or something. Sylvia's saying, can I ask why? Why am I jumping ahead and doing this? I don't know. No real reason other than I wanted a little win for the week, I think. I love the feeling of putting a binding on, and I knew we were going to have a lot of quilting to do on this, and I'm still kind of undecided on the quilting. The pattern has some very detailed quilting, which was what my plan was. But after sandwiching it together, I'm wondering if I just want a little bit more simple quilting, so I can't quite decide. So I'm doing the starting parts of the quilting, which will be the same if I do it a simple quilting or more in depth, and that's starting with stitching in the ditch around the border and around each one of these blocks. There's 36 blocks, and each one will sew a square around. So after I get those parts done, then I can decide if I want to get more detailed. And I think I might, at least in this border for sure. I know I want to do the detailed quilting. All of that I'll have to switch a machine. So by getting the binding done now, first of all, it makes me super happy. And I have this machine out still, which is, you know, what I would use for that. Putting on the binding, and figured, let's just do it. But yeah, normally I would quilt the whole quilt first and then do this at the end. And I think it's the typical idea is that you start quilting from the center and then you go outward because it can kind of push the quilt outward, but I figure this is on here good enough. I don't need to worry about all that. Who cares? That's what I think. I want the binding on, and I'm excited about it, so that's why I'm doing it. All right, so I'm almost to my little clip here. That's where I'm gonna stop, and then we can attempt to assemble these ends together. Which again, I'm gonna have to like think through. Again, it's been a while. Yeah, Kimberly, I am kind of feeling that way. So Kimberly says maybe with the binding on, you'll feel inspired to do more of the detailed quilting. And I kind of am. Like, as I'm doing this, I am getting more excited about the quilting of it for sure. Yeah, so I feel like I get the win. The nice thing about putting on the binding now is that, like, once I go around each of these squares, I will have enough quilting to have this be considered, like, done. As far as, you know, it's all going to be held together. I don't have any other pins in, or I won't at that point. All right, about there, and I'm going to do a little back tack. So technically, I'd have a finished quilt, except for, like, you know, hand stitching the binding to the back. So I love that. I love the idea of having a finished quilt that I just get to embellish more with quilting. I think that's sounds exciting to me. I'm not sure I've ever done that before, so I'm happy about that. Yeah, exactly. Kimberly says once you quilted the borders, there was no more pushing the fabric from the center out. I established the rails. That's a good way of saying it. I established the rails, so why not add the binding? Exactly. There was no like structural reason why I couldn't do that after doing the borders. All right, so here we are. It is so pretty. I love it so much. Ugh, all these colors. Although I recently just found out, you know, after I have this whole quilt done, that John does not like this teal at all. Which super sucks because I love it so much. And it turns out that it was because, like, when I was little and we played soccer, we always had the teal uniforms, and I just never liked those teal uniforms. So he's got a whole history of not liking this teal, which I didn't know about. So anyway, that's that. All right, so here are my binding edges. I've left about that 10 inches or so. I'm going to zoom down here so you guys can see this a little bit more, because this can get a little confusing, I think. All right, let me squish down the quilt so I can see your comments. The color of the year, Gretchen's asking, wasn't this the color of the year? Oh yeah, so we decided to frame this whole, we picked all of these colors based on the color of the year from Pantone, the Pantone color of the year, and it was last year's color of the year, and I think it was really close to this blue right here, this kind of like pretty medium blue, but I didn't have enough of that to have that be the main color of the quilt. I did have this teal, and I thought that kind of went well together with this blue, so I'm hoping it kind of like helps this blue a little bit, and so that's kind of where the colors of this came from. All right, so here are the bits again. So we have our piece of the edge of the quilt that we have not put binding on, and then we have the binding from the start on this side, and then the binding on the end from this side, and clearly we have a ton left over. All right. So the first thing we really need to know is how wide is our binding. So let's get a little ruler out. I think I typically do them 2.5 inches or 2 1/4 inches. I think 2 1/4, but I don't remember, so I'm going to measure. People do their bindings at all different ones. So okay, so this is at 2 1/4 inches. So what I need to do is I want these two, clearly both of these are too long. These are too long. I mean, you know, I have all this left here. So I need these to kind of cross in the middle of my leftover area here. So I want them to cross about right here, and they need to cross at exactly 2 1/4 inches. So exactly the width of one of the bindings when it's unfolded. The width of the unfolded, that's how much they need to cross over. So first of all, I think, and I'm going to eyeball this. So let's it's about this wide. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle, but just about. So it'll be about right there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just trim off some of this edge, and I'm going to just get a little cutting board. I'm just going to kind of mark where I'm going to cut it. Let's get my itty bitty board out here, and I could just estimate this a little bit more. I'm actually going to just use a scissors here too, I think. But for this, let's just get our first cut, because this is just too much excess. So I'm going to just get a little snip of it off here. Just using the ruler and the mat so it can be a little straighter. But the other piece I might cut with just a scissors. So anyway, so this is excess. So this is our starting side. So this is the size I want it to be. So now I want everything to be flat here, and then I'm going to lay this one on top of it. And I need it to overlap at 2.5 inches. And I'm just noticing now that we have a seam right here which super kind of blows. That might actually mess us up a little bit. But maybe we'll actually be sewing right on that seam. I think we're actually going to be sewing freaking right next to this seam. So we're going to have two seams right next to each other, unless I attempt to, well, no, I can't do that on this side anymore because I already trimmed that. I could try and, I'm going to just do it right on the seam, you guys. I know this is not great here. Just pretend it's not there. Gretchen says, no, just pretend it isn't there. I think that is what I'm going to do. I didn't realize I had a seam. What I really should do at this point is probably unpick some stitches and go a little bit further down and then sew this on a little bit here and then have my 8 or so inches be here. But, boo. I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to just pretend it's not there. Or should I? I think we might go a little bit down. You know what? I'm going to pick out some stitches here. I'm not going to back tack or anything just because we're going to be sewing this up right away. But boo! All right, we're doing it. Grr. Let me find a seam ripper here. All right. It got me. I thought we were going to get away with having our seams fall in all the right spots, which is not on a corner. I didn't want it on a corner. Barbara says, this is why I never cut until I sew the pieces together. Yep, I just didn't catch it, so whatever. We're gonna just quickly take a few inches out this way. And it's fine that this is getting longer. It's 100% fine. We're gonna be sewing it right back up soon. So, all right, whoosh down this seam a bit. Trying to be careful not to cut the actual binding. And there we go. Now we're a little further down. Now that seam won't bother us. So let's just lay these on top of each other again. I'm going to totally do this with the scissors now. I'm going to go right to here. There, this will work. So I think I'm going to do it this way. So I'm going to just cut the white piece, and then we'll cut the blue piece to be that 2.5 inches. So I'm going to cut right here. Theoretically, I could have done that with the ruler and everything, but I think we're fine. Kimberly says you spent nearly a year. I've spent more than a year at this point. You can't throw caution to the wind. All right, so now we're gonna lay this one here, and I'm gonna do the 2.5 inches crossing over on this 2.25 inches here. So let's maybe I'll do this right on the mat. No, let's just kind of measure I'm gonna just literally scissors it again. 2.5. Ugh, no, I'm not. I'm going to, or 2.25, I mean. I'm gonna get a little white pencil. I said I'm just gonna do it, but then now I'm like getting all fancy. So I'm just getting a little white pencil there so I can see it. Now I am gonna just trim. So 2 1/4 inches, or whatever the width of your binding is. All right, so here's my excess binding. I will save that for something else. But there we go. So now we have a crossover of 2 1/4 inches. Again, it's whatever the width of your binding is. So if you're using a 2 1/2 inch binding, make sure you're crossing over 2 1/2 inches. I'm doing 2 1/4 inches. All right, so here is the little magic part, and I do need a pin for this, I think. So this is also where the extra bulk, or like the extra, leaving a little bit extra there is helpful. So I'm going to kind of bunch this up so I have a bunch of slack here now. So now I can move these pieces around without them stretching out at all. I am going to open both of these up. This is the part where I get a little confused here. So let's grab my pin. So we're going to treat this as if we are making a join, like if we're joining 2 of these fabric pieces together, like what we did here. So I'm going to open it up, and I got to know what the right side of the fabric is. So here we go, the fold. When we unfold it, this is the right side, and this is the right side over here. We should just be able to put right sides together, like so, and then sew along this diagonal here. And I always like to do a little bit of a test, so I'm going to just put a pin where I might sew. And I'm going to pretend that I sewed on here, and then when I fold everything back, it should be just perfect and matched up, and it looks that way. So I know I'm doing it right. The key really to doing this is having enough of this slack here. So this looks great. I am going to just throw a clip here, and I'm going to actually take a pencil, I think, and draw from the diagonals just to make sure I can, I'm sewing from diagonal to diagonal, so I'm going to move this a little just to be able to draw. And pencil. All right, I can't find a pencil, but I did find this air erasable marker, so I'm just going to use that. This is really difficult to do if you didn't leave yourself much slack. So don't worry about like leaving, I started with like 10 inches and I took out at least another 4 or 5 inches. There, that's all I need. I just needed to see a little bit of a line there. All right, we're headed to the machine, and then we're gonna sew that down. Oh, Linda says, always when I do this, I sew the angle in the wrong direction, like sewing, like not putting these together quite right, and then sewing in the wrong direction. That's always my fear. So I really have to think of like what's the right side of the fabric when I open this up, and the right side here, and it is kind of like a squiggle dance. But then I always, before sewing, I do what I just kind of did there. I pull it back out and see if they refold in the right spot. And it's going to be really cool. Once I have it stitched, so I'll show you guys that, and I'll do that before I like trim the excess off. So all right, let's head over to the machine and bring all my bulk here over. A little tricky, but we are gonna sew along that diagonal, and my air erasing marker is already erasing, but I can still just see it. All right, I'm just going to do a little back tack. I probably don't need to, but I think I'm a little paranoid. Okay, so going on that line, which again is just the diagonal. All right, about like so. And here's the magic part. Once I take this off, it is just so cool, and this is the reason I love this way of doing it. All right, let's take this off the machine here. All right, I probably didn't need the clip and the pin. All right, let's take the pin out. Hopefully I don't need that anymore if I did this right. Okay, so to see if this worked, I am going to trim off this excess. Oh, you don't understand. Gretchen says, I don't understand the idea behind an air erasing pen. Yeah, it just goes away so quickly that, I can't hardly do anything with it. But all right, so I'm now going to flatten this out again. And what should happen is my binding strips should refold themselves. Oh, hopefully I did this right. Yep, and then... Oh, see, maybe I did this wrong. Okay, see, this is why it's so confusing. Okay, so I am going to have to do this again. I didn't get an extra flip in there, or I flipped this too much. Ugh, you guys, it's been so long. But that's the deal. Like, I can check it by, like, pulling it back out. Totally did it wrong. All right, let's do that again. It's too late in the day for this, you guys. I thought your blue was twisted at first. Oh, nope, it's twisted. We're doing it wrong. But these ended up right. Both on the outside. So we have to fix this. Hold on. Oh man. Now I wish I wouldn't have put the back stitching in. It is just gonna be a day. That's it. Sometimes I get this totally right the first try and I'm a total pro, and other days it's just a whole ordeal, and that's one of those days, I guess. As long as I don't poke a hole in this, then we'll be good. Oh, let's just try and pick this thing out instead of going across like how I normally do. Well, as far as good things go today, I did have a A+ dentist appointment today, so that's my win for the day. I can't have more than one win for the day. Come on, guy. Alright, before my brain gets too confused, let's see if I can... I don't want to let this go. I want to keep holding like where I had it sewn. Alright, so I was like this. Alright, so I need to just twist this around once. And that now I should be good to go again. Let's do our little test again. Apparently I did not do that well enough. Let's get a clip here and a clip here. There, now this is looking better than before. Let's just pull on this. There, that should turn out perfect. All right, let's do it. Yep, exactly, Barbara. At least I know the length is correct. So that is the beauty of doing it like that, making sure you know the width of your thread or your binding. Yeah, so I know this is right. I just added that extra twist in. So we're fine now, and I can just follow the same sew line I had here. This is gonna be right this time. But yeah, I always test it like that before I cut off that extra corner, because that is a bummer. Then you got to add more binding back to it. That's a huge bummer if you cut your triangle off without testing it. All right, let's see if we can win this time. the other win that was that dentist was, and the hygienist and everyone there was fabulous. It's the first time we've gone there, and it's like a literal like minute and a half walk, maybe not even, like a 30-second walk from our house. So it was a big dental win today, you guys. All right, let's test it again. Let's pull this flat and everything. Our binding should just fold to the right position. There, that's how it should be. And it's the exact right length. And that is from doing that crossover of the width of the fabric here. Ugh, so good. Amy says, when I first learned this, I did 9 table runners in a row, and then it sank in, like, the right way to do this. Yeah. The confusing part is, like, there's an extra, like, little twist that you got to do in one side. But yes, once you get going with it, then it makes total sense, and it's even more magical, because you just whoop, and then pull it back out, and it's perfect. So now I know that I can trim this excess off. We don't need that excess, so I'm going to bunch this up again. And just with my scissors, I'm going to snip off that excess. There we are. And the last thing we need to do, you know, we can pull this back out here again. All we got to do now is connect our sewing point. So we ended sewing here. I just got to sew all the way down and go to where we began right there. And I think I'm going to actually, since this is kind of a bigger area than I usually do, I think I'm going to put a little clip in. And actually, I'm going to just finger press. I could really press this, but I'm going to just finger press this seam open and then cross it over like so. And then I'll pin this down. I won't pin it down, I'll clip it. So there, so we have a seam right here. That's why we had to move it down, and now we have our second one here. So it's a little goofy, but you know, it's a white on white seam, so you can't even really see it. All right, so now all we're doing is sewing a 1/4 inch, and that closes that gap, and then we are 100% done with sewing the binding on, you know, besides the back. And I love this way because it doesn't add any extra bulk. There are some ways to do bindings where you like cross over the ends, but that always adds a little heftiness to it. This doesn't have that at all. It's the exact same seam as any other seam, combining these strips. I love it. It's just magic when you pull it straight and it all just kind of folds right in the right space. Perfect. Gretchen says, random thought, I really love Jerry Seinfeld. He's a national treasure. Okay, John and I literally, I've been talking about what TV show to watch next for a little while now. And then Netflix announces that all of the Seinfelds are on, and I'm like, yes, finally. I've been waiting for Seinfeld to be, you know, bulk watched on some network, and you know, I just figured, you know, it's in syndication yet. They're making money on it on normal TV still, so that's why it hasn't ever been streaming anywhere. But then, like, not even a week later, they have it on Netflix. So we put it out there, you guys, and we made it happen. Netflix, listen to our cries. So anyway, John and I, after we got back from the dentist, we watched a few episodes of that, and even in the first, we're like 4 episodes in. They're like 20 minutes long, you guys. It's so short. But they're already feeling just great, and there's already like so many things, you know, that you remember from it, and it's only like a couple episodes in, and you're just like, dang, what are all the rest of the episodes gonna be like? Like, there's so many things I remember already as like classic moments in just like these first 4 episodes that I saw. So, and I was saying to John, oh my gosh, the perfect day, the perfect vacation right now would be to just sit on my couch, put all of the Seinfelds on, or just like binge watch Seinfeld, and like knit, and like, I don't know, have soup. Just soup the couch, Seinfeld episodes and like knitting. I mean, tell me that doesn't sound amazing. All right, we're getting to the other end here. So I'm going to just sew right over that, and then we'll do our little back tack. There we go. It's making me feel like I need a knitting project. Carter says, yes, Queenie must do that. I mean, like, literally, can you think of something better than that? Oh, drink beer and watch. Yes, a beer. Oh, man, that sounds so amazing. A beer, you know, it travels through the day because, you know, you're binge watching a zillion episodes, right? So you need some beer, some tea, some coffee. Oh, yeah, some wine, knitting for sure. Maybe throw in a cross stitch or an embroidery or hand stitching a binding to a quilt. There you go. So anyway, so we have this on. It is attached. So all we do now, I mean, the binding's attached. The last step of the binding is we fold it over to the back. You can see like our stitch lines from the binding. Oh, someone asked, yes, I did. I did stitch the edge first, just to kind of hold everything together. I wasn't going to do that, but then I did. Yeah, so I did stitch it first before stitching the binding on. But this bottom stitch here on the back, that's from the sewing the binding on from the front here. We're going to flip this over to the back, flip the binding over, and I like using that line as a guide. I go like right over the edge there, and then I'll hand stitch this binding on, and I love doing that so much. And this would be a good Seinfeld project too, just chilling and stitching the binding on. But look how cute this is going to be. It's just going to be like that little spark of that dark blue, and every once in a while it's going to change colors. So this, let's see what the white looks like. It's just fun, I think, to see it at the right size. So like folding it over, just kind of like peeking. Ooh, white's going to be so pretty as well. Ugh, love it. Love it, love it, love it. And our mitered corners are going to be nice. So how we do that, we'll come up around the edge here and flip it over the edge again, and we're going to have like the nicest little mitered corners here that we'll stitch down. Oh, my favorite part. I do really love stitching a binding on. Barbara's asking, what color thread will you use to hand sew the binding on, and what thread weight? So I'll probably just still use my, I believe this is 50 weight thread. Let me just peek. It is 50 weight, right? Yeah, 50. So I'm going to use the same thread that I'm sewing with, but there is a good point of that it is this kind of weird orange. Maybe I don't want the weird orange. Huh, I do have, I do have this dark blue. This is what I should be using, right? So I do have a dark blue 50 weight, and most of this is dark blue, so maybe I'll use that. Yeah, I think I'll use this dark blue. That probably makes more sense. We considered doing the quilting with the dark blue, but we went with the orange instead, and I think that orange is going to be really awfully cute. But yeah, this dark blue for the binding. I might actually just keep this with this project so I remember that. But yeah, so just the same thing. I'm just using the 50 weight, and I'll just use one strand. I won't be doubling it up. I like the whip stitch. Not whip stitch, but like, what is that? Not the ladder stitch. Some people do the ladder stitch, and then there's the, gosh, it's like a little whip stitch, and then you go over one. Oh, I forget what we call that. I like doing that stitch for it. But we'll be doing this live here too eventually. So I'll be doing that. But yep, that's what I'll use. All right, you guys, I feel super duper great. Oh, and we got our little tag in. So this will be like the bottom left-hand corner here. There, that'll be so cute. All right, love it. All right, so now what we have to do is sew around all of these individual squares. Normally, I would just sew all the way up the row, and then all the way down the row, and then all the way across, and that's how I would get all these squares. But I am still kind of trying to do it in the directions that came with the pattern. So here we are again. Let's look at that. This is what I'm talking about. This is the quilting instructions. It is so detailed. Like, look at, all of these squiggles are in this tiny, tiny, tiny little, like, 1-inch area here. Like, what? So, like, all of this, doing that in a 1-inch wide area, like, that's a lot. And same thing here. All those paisley things are a lot. All these zigzaggies here, it's all just a lot. So this is why I'm not quite sure if I want to do it. I do want to do these, though. I do like this border, all these little kind of teardrop shapes. But that's in each one of these would be one of those teardrop shapes. So that alone is going to take ages. But what is happening here is that it's stitched in the ditch first. And what that means, stitching in the ditch, is just following the seams. So we've done that here. So we did this seam on the side of the border, and we did this seam, which are drawn in here. So typically you do that before you do all this super duper decorative stuff. It kind of actually holds the fabric in place, so you can do that. And all of these squares also have that around. So I think that's what we'll do next, because I can still decide, right? So oh yeah, blind stitch. That's what it's called, Renee. Yes. So I'd fold this around. I'd do a tiny little stitch, and then I'd go over a little bit, then do another tiny little stitch. Yep, that's exactly how I do that. Barbara says, yes, I think you should simplify the quilting for sure. So yes, my original intention was to do it exactly like how it was, but then my mom and I sandwiched this quilt together, and I'm just like seeing how little these borders are, and I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know. It's so much. So the one thing I know for sure is I do want to do the little teardrop shapes in the border. For some reason, I'm feeling good about that. I'm tempted to just put like one little wool tie in the middle of each of these dots and call it a day. Have like a really decorative border, and then like one little poof in each thing after we sew stitch in the ditch. I'm literally tempted to just do that. So I don't know. We'll see. Oh, Kimberly says maybe now you should work the center out so I don't get bulges. I'm not too worried about that. We did pin this well enough, and even if I do, like, I'd rather, I think, have like bulges all the way around versus it perfect in the middle and then like it bulging to the point where I have my border. That's, a reason to not have done the border first, but oh well. So, I mean, there's that too. So Noeline says, take up the challenge. It'll be so rewarding to see it finished. Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. It would be really cool to try all that quilting as well. So I am definitely in undecided land. So that's why I'm like, hey, I can at least get the basics done that I'll need to do in both cases. So stitching in the ditch, which we've already done, and then stitching in the ditch around each one of these squares, regardless of if I go super fancy or not so fancy, not so detailed, or heavy in the quilting. I got a first step to do in either case. So I'm going to do that, and then I can make decisions way later. And since right now I'm totally feeling doing the design in the border, I can always do that first. And if I'm like, meh, I'm done, then I can just be done. But if I'm feeling it still, then I can start doing all the other fancy quilting. But for now, we'll do the square, which is going to be kind of annoying because I have to turn all the quilt a zillion times, and I'm going to pull the threads to the back each time too. So anyway, I guess we just start. We do get to pull out the pins. That'll be nice. Yeah, I don't think we need the pins in after that. So Jennifer says, I think it would be too much. All the quilting takes away from the beautiful quilt. That's a little bit of what I'm worried about, is that it'll just be too much. so I don't know. Just not going to decide yet. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so let's just get up here. So I don't have the underneath thread, so hopefully this just doesn't all suck up into the machine, but let's get right here. So I'm not gonna back tack, I'm gonna do the thing where I pull the thread to the back. We'll get fancy like that at least. That's kind of a new thing for me to do. Oh, come on, guy, there. All right. I'm gonna get my gloves on. Oh, they're both in my hand. I was looking for one and I have them both right here. My table has stuff on it again. Oh, that's gonna fall to the floor as I turn my quilt, I think. Oh, binding on. That is such a win. Love it. Oh man, I just wanna like literally go watch Seinfeld now and stitch the binding on. But I'll stitch the binding on here with you guys. Oops, went backwards a little there. I mean, it is being weird. So theoretically, I could have pinned this a little bit better and all that, but I'm fine with it. This is all, anything that's puckered and weird is gonna, just once I wash it, you're not gonna see any of that stuff anymore. And my intention is to wash and use this, so I'm fine with the little pucker. All right, needle down, and then I'm gonna just rotate here. Yeah, so every, Amy, you're right. Amy says each batting is different, but most say no more than 6 inches, not quilted. So I might be a little bit more than that. But yeah, so for batting, the batting is what you want to pay attention to for like how close you need your quilting. So like how close between what I'm quilting now and like the next quilted thing, which is like right here. But like, here to here is quite a bit of distance. Most modern batting, yeah, it's like 6 to 8 inches or so. But like old school batting, sometimes it, like old cotton batting, like from, I don't know, before now. I don't know if you can buy it anymore, but a lot of that you had to quilt like 2 inches apart or something. So I think that's why you see a lot of heavily quilted, hand quilted designs from years ago. So yeah, we're kind of pushing, I gotta put this all on my lap now. We're kind of pushing the limit of oh man, this is gonna, this is where I gotta get like it all up in the machine here. Yeah, not looking forward to all these squares actually, because of this reason right here. Gotta fit it all in the machine. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, maybe I'll leave a pin or something in the middle. All right, let's shift up a hair. Luckily, these aren't that big. I should just do like a 8-hour live viewing of Seinfeld and stitching at the same time, and that can be our stitch along. All right, I think I'm gonna try and rotate it back around the other way. And then I'll still have to stuff it in here. Got one more side to this puppy. get some quilt in the back side here. Making sure there's nothing underneath that'll get sewn. All right, seems good. Getting the gloves on. Just trying to get it nice and flat. Ooh, make sure my needle's down. Yeah, I might just leave some of these pins in there, then you know, I won't have to worry about the quilting being too far apart. Ooh, we're gonna have ourselves a teeny little pucker here. All right, we've gone around once there. So let's pull these threads to the back. This is going to be a little bit of a bear doing this too, isn't it? Each time. I think I might be able to just jump to the next square as I get going on this, but man, I don't know. All right, so here we go. This is the first square that we've done here. Definitely bunching at the end. I should just, yeah, minimize the quilting and then just let this poof up in the wash or something. But anyway, let's flip it over. I'm gonna still attempt to do this. I have to find my stiletto, there we go. Let's pull our threads to the back. So I'm pulling the front threads to the back. So there's that grouping, and just by giving the back thread a little tug, and that'll bring the loop of the front thread up. Ooh, can't grab this. Sheesh, there we go. Okay, so now I have like the start and the end, but both threads. And this might get old real fast. Well, we gotta do it 36 times. I can deal with that. So I just have to do it 35 more times after this. So I'm gonna just be, I'm gonna put both of these threads in my needle here, and we'll tie a little quilter's knot at the end. So I'm just holding those loops so that my knot goes way down there. And then I'm just gonna pop this through to the back. I'm gonna go just in the back, just behind this backing fabric, and then come up and we'll pop that knot through. Oops. There we go. So now, just like hand quilting, the knot is on the inside there, and we'll have like a nice clean finish. I didn't quite start and end at the same spot, but hopefully we'll get better at that as we go. Oh, let's trim these so they're the same. Tie our little knot. So today's Thursday, so tomorrow we're going to have a Finish It Friday, so this might be it for this quilt this month. I think tomorrow, oop, lost my needle again. I think tomorrow we'll do that pillow that we've been talking about. So taking the scraps from the edges that we cut off of the binding, I'll show you guys that again, and kind of improv piecing them all together to cover a pillow, make a little pillow sham. There we go, popped it to the back. And yeah, so we'll make like a scrappy pillow friend for this quilt. So there we go. Let's just check it out in the back here. Hey, this turned out to be a pretty decent square. Here, let me lift you guys up a bit. So our corner, the backs of the corner, the corners of the back all have a corner there. Oh, and I think someone mentioned they haven't seen the back. So it's hard to share the back. I did take a photo of the back and I posted it in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group so you can see it there. But we did try and mimic a granny square on the back with a bunch of scraps. So we improv pieced scraps together. Oops. And so here's my center square, and then we try and made like pieces go around it. It actually turned out really cute. And then the corners each have a little square of fabric. So this is great. So I'll be able to actually lay this out on the floor and see what it looks like as like a real quilt without all the excess on. Yeah, and then we got our first square kind of quilted here. I think technically I'd be probably fine if I took these pins out. I think I'm going to do it. Eventually I'll quilt in here too, but I don't think this is adding any safety for us at all. I mean, I wouldn't want to wash this quilt without doing some more quilting within here, but I think just for it hanging out while we quilt other squares, I'm not going to need pins in there. So there we are. First little bit done. So like I said, I have 35 more of these squares to do that stitch in the ditch for, and then we can do fancy quilting. And for sure, I want to still do that fancy quilting in the border. I will question mark all the rest of the fancy quilting, and then of course we could just chill and sew our hand stitch our binding on, which I love doing, so we may end up just doing that sometime. All right, and I think we're gonna just call it there for the night, everyone. It's gonna just take a while to do a whole nother one of those squares and fiddling with the big fat giant quilt. But I am still loving it. It is turning out just so sweet and cute, and makes me feel good to just have that binding on. At least now I can store this as one object. I don't have to save like a bunch of different pieces. I just want to, you know, have the pattern available with it, and that's like the only two little pieces of it. So I'm really happy about this. Yeah, maybe in our free week we'll maybe do some hand stitching on the binding. I don't know. I'd like to push this quilt through to the end because I'm feeling it. So this is the extra ends that we had. So this is what we cut off from the edge when we did the binding. So this is what I'm hoping to kind of improv piece together to make a pillow sham. And I have some other fabrics from this project that we can use too. Woo! The fuzzles are flying though with that. So I'm gonna find a spare pillow that I have sitting around the house tomorrow, and then we can use that to kind of measure. We'll be kind of loosey-goosey on the measurements while we're just kind of piecing things together, and then we'll like trim it to be like perfect or whatever. So I think that's gonna be our Finish It Friday. It'll still feel like we're working on this project, but it'll be kind of like recycling some of our excess here. So awesome, you guys. Thank you again for joining me. I'll be back here at 8:30 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Good night.